Ever looked at a giant, messy data file and just thought, how on earth does this become something useful? You know, the kind of clean, powerful insights that actually drive big business decisions? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain. We're diving into what I like to call a data refinery, a process that turns total digital chaos into pure, actionable intelligence. All right, let's jump in. So it all begins right here. A single, absolutely massive text file. And I mean, look at it. It's just a chaotic jumble of numbers, dates, random codes. It's practically unreadable for you or me. So the real question, the big one, is this. How do we possibly turn this mess into an organized, clean system? You know, something where we can actually ask a question and get a straight answer back. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this 5-step refinery process. We'll start with ingestion, move on to structuring by time, then we'll enrich it, connect all the final pieces, and bam, we'll end up with an awesome toolkit for any analyst out there.
All right, first stop, ingestion and foundation. This is like the crude intake pipe of our refinery. We're taking that raw, messy text file and just pumping it straight into the system to get this whole process started. And when I say raw material, I mean a lot of it. The scale here is just wow. We're talking about loading over 192 million rows of raw text. Get this. A single command to just copy all of that data took a little over 16 minutes. That's an absolutely huge amount of data to kick things off with.
Now, this is our first big move, and honestly, it's incredibly clever. We're doing 3 things all at once with just one single instruction. So first, we create a brand new, totally clean table. Think of it like building the perfect empty container for our good data. Then, second, as we pour the data in, we're only grabbing the columns we actually need, and on the fly, we're converting all that messy text into proper dates and numbers. And finally, step 3, we slap on a filter. We're only keeping sales data from 2020 to 2025. Everything else, all that junk, it just falls away. Super efficient.
And this slide right here, it just perfectly shows the before and after. On the left, you've got that raw text junk. A date is just a bunch of characters. The quantity has this weird negative sign. A number is, well, it's just text. But look at the right. That's the result. We now have a proper date that you can actually do math with, a clean positive number for the quantity, and a real integer. This is the whole point, right? The data finally has meaning.
And the impact of just that one filtering step, it's absolutely staggering. Think about it. We started with 192 million rows. In one fell swoop, we're down to 51 million. We just tossed out over 140 million irrelevant records. But here's the key. We didn't lose data. We gained clarity. We are now laser-focused only on the stuff that actually matters to the business. Okay, let's head to the next stage in our refinery. This is where things get really interesting, structuring data through time. You can picture these as the giant distillation towers, where we start separating our data into different, much more useful buckets, all based on time.
Now, to do that, we got to get our heads around one key idea, and that's the fiscal year. It's not your typical January to December calendar year. For this company, their business year runs from April 1st all the way to March 31st. This is super important because basically all of our analysis from here on out is going to be built on this foundation.
And with that fiscal year as our guide, we can now slice and dice those 51 million transactions in some really powerful ways. We can chop them up into 52 fiscal weeks. We can group them into 4 distinct quarters, for all that high-level financial reporting. And we can even create custom retail seasons, like summer or winter, so we can see how we performed during those key sales periods. It's all about breaking it down. So you might be thinking, okay, why bother with all this extra work? Well, it's because each one of these new tables is like a special key that unlocks a very specific business insight. Our weekly sales table, that helps us smooth out all the crazy daily ups and downs so we can see the real trends. The seasons table, that lets us zoom in on performance during a big winter sale. Quarters are, of course, essential for talking to investors. And then there's this cool one, Month Divisor. It actually helps us see when in the month people are buying, so we can answer questions like, are we selling more stuff right after payday, or is it spread out? Okay, so our data is clean and it's neatly structured by time. We're in a great spot. The next step in our refinery is all about enrichment. We're going to start blending in some additives. These are new layers of information that are going to give our data some serious context and power. And we can actually start by enriching the data with information we already have. It was just hitting. So that original raw file had some text about promotions buried in it. By pulling that out and giving it its own special promotion table, we can now do something really cool. We can directly link a spike in sales to a specific marketing campaign. We can finally see which promotions actually worked and which ones were a dud. But honestly, the real magic happens when we start blending in external data. For example, we can load a completely separate file that just has a list of festival dates. By layering that on top of our sales data, think about what happens. Now, when an analyst sees a big sales spike, they can immediately check if it lines up with a major holiday like Diwali or Christmas. All of a sudden, that random spike isn't random anymore. It has a story. Here's another fantastic example of that. We can bring in yet another file, this one with historical GST rates, that's the goods and services tax. We merge this with our weekly sales data, and we get this new table, GST sales. And this lets us analyze something that's incredibly valuable. How did changes in the national tax rate actually affect how people were spending their money, week by week? That's a huge question to be able to answer. We're so close. We've got clean data, it's structured by time, and it's enriched with all this great context. The final critical step in our transformation is to ground all of this in reality. We need to connect these numbers to the real-world stuff, the actual products being sold and the stores that are selling them. And this little snippet here highlights a super common real-world headache. Sometimes your data is so fundamentally broken that you can't even get it into the database to begin with. This code is from a script that had to be run before anything else. Its only job was to hunt down and remove invisible junk, like when someone accidentally hits the Enter key right in the middle of a store's name. That would have crashed the whole import. It's just a great reminder that data cleaning isn't a single step, it's something you're doing constantly, at every stage of the game. So with that final bit of cleaning done, we can bring in the last pieces of our puzzle, the master data that describes our products and stores. The item table tells us what was sold, the brand, the size, you name it. The final store info table tells us where it was sold, down to the specific store. And the cluster table even gives us context on the type of city that store is in. This is it. This is how we connect all those abstract numbers back to the real world. And just like that, we've reached the end of our refinery process. After all that cleaning, all that structuring, and all that enriching, we're finally left with the good stuff, the final, perfectly refined products. Just take a look at this. This isn't just a random list of tables anymore. What you're seeing is a complete analytical toolkit. Every single table here is a purpose-built tool, ready to be picked up and combined with the others to answer some really complex business questions. An analyst can now jump in here and explore almost any question they can dream up. They can go from raw, messy data to deep, meaningful insight in minutes, instead of weeks. It's a total game changer. So let's recap. We went from 192 million lines of pure chaos to this powerful, interconnected toolkit that's primed and ready for analysis. This whole journey, from start to finish, was about one thing: churning raw material into refined insight. And now that our data refinery has done its job, the real fun can begin. So I'm going to leave you with a question. If this powerful toolkit was sitting on your desk right now, what's the very first business question you would ask?